fact is, you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Remember when things were a little simpler? In front of you?
No Fox? No Fox today.
Was an evening mass for tea.
That sucks.
On 800-861-0407 today. Comfort Medical will also send you a free Comfort Kit. Call 1-800-861-0407 now.
Por amigo. ¿Saben ustedes que en Nueva York se encuentra?
Unless it's real enforcement. I'm gonna go through it. It's my view.
All right. Thank you, panel. See you next week. Don't forget to check out Panel Plus, where our group picks right up with the discussion on our website, FoxNewsSunday.com, and we'll post the video before noon Eastern Time. And make sure to follow us on Twitter, @Fox News Sunday. Up next, our Power Player of the Week.
The day we landed Flight 1549 on the Hudson, people called me a hero. But I want you to meet someone who's a real hero to me. Her name is Aubrey. She's 9 years old, and she's a patient here at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Yep, I have very low leukemia.
It's a very aggressive cancer, but Aubrey shows us what true bravery is all about.
Every day, thousands of children around the world depend on St. Jude's life-saving work. They're all heroes, fighting for their lives, and they need your help to survive. Now you can be their hero. Call today and become a St. Jude Partner in Hope for only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. You'll help provide breakthrough treatments, research, and cures. You'll give these children the hope they need, just when they need it the most. Call now and help save precious lives for only $19 a month. Every month you'll receive a photo and story of a child you're helping. You'll help keep Danny Thomas's promise that no child is ever turned away because of a family's inability to pay. You'll help fund new research and find new cures for children. Our research has helped more than triple the survival rate for childhood cancers.
I support St. Jude, and I can assure you that the money you give is going to do something extraordinary. Save children's lives.
Only 63 cents a day. $19 a month can make all the difference for a child like Aubrey. A tax-deductible gift of any size will go to work immediately.
Your call today will help save thousands of children. Nothing could be more heroic than that.
Please, call the number on your screen right now. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children.
It is common practice in Washington for people to use words to score a point, to sting. But we found a woman who uses words to reach out and to heal. And she is our Power Player of the Week.
To comfort us when we have losses, to celebrate with us our joys and triumphs, but also to help us see things differently than we do in our everyday lives.
Natasha Trethewey is talking about poetry and the role she says it continues to play. Not as accessible as prose, not as immediate as video images, but conveying something important, something deeper.
I now use ink to keep record. Sometimes our everyday speech has a way of saying this is me and that's you and we're different. And I think poetry has a way of saying this is my experience and you can share in it with me. Truth be told, I do not want to forget anything of my former life.
Trethewey is the nation's 19th poet laureate. Working out of the Library of Congress, her job this year is to spread her love of poetry.
That I actually get inspired. It helps me to write poems to be here.
She describes her role as a cheerleader.
In a former life was a cheerleader, and it seemed a natural way for me to think about being excited about something, being passionate about something that means a lot to me that I'd like to convey to other people.
Trethewey's father is white, her mother black. They had to leave Mississippi in the 60s to get married.
How do you think it affected you, the idea that your parents' marriage was a crime?
Well, I think that it created in me a sense of psychological exile.
And when she was 19, her mother was murdered by her former stepfather.
That's the moment where I really tried, in the language of poetry, to make sense of that loss. Here, the dead stand up in stone, white marble on Confederate Avenue. I stand on ground once hollowed by a web of caves.
One of the themes of her work is memory. What gets left out of the nation's public record? She won a Pulitzer Prize in 2007 for Native Guard, about a forgotten black Union regiment that fought in the Civil War.
We know it is our duty now to keep white men as prisoners, rebel soldiers, would-be masters.
She wrote that poem in the library's reading room, in seat 170. Sometimes, to rest her eyes, she would look up at a pillar marked poetry.
And now when I do it, I can't see the word poetry so clearly, but I have faith that it's there.
And so Trethewey will continue to cheerlead for an art form that forces you to slow down and contemplate in a world that doesn't always value that.
Trying to find a way to say what seems so necessary to be said, but so difficult also, to someone that I can speak very intimately to, across time and space, on the page. That is thrilling to me.
Trethewey works out of the attic in the Library of Congress, and she has set up office hours there for people who want to come and discuss poetry. And that's it for today. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Fox News Sunday.
Fox News Sunday is a presentation of Fox News.
It's a story that most
Daddy. Everyone noticed those. With VisionWorks value, style costs a lot less. Now, buy one pair of glasses, get one free. Any frames, any lenses. Or get a single vision pair for just $49.95. VisionWorks. It's a brutal business. But just when I'd want to throw in the towel, something would happen.
5 minutes, I deserve that.
No one deserves anything in this business. You wait your turn and you earn it.
You only get one shot.
One shot's all we need.
We get this right, you'll win every award in town.
Academy Award winner Jennifer Hudson in Smash, the 2-hour premiere event this Tuesday, 9, 8 Central, here on NBC.
Monday morning, get started with NBC2 News Today.
Your top stories and breaking news every weekday starting at 4:30.
Plus, from the big winners to the best ads.
All the highlights of the big game. Will the beautiful weather stretch into the work week? I'll have your first alert forecast on it too.
From NBC News in Washington, the world's longest running television program, this is Meet the Press with
Commentary with JeffandJeffs.com, J-EFFS.com, live video.
Are on the horizon: defense cuts, immigration reform, gun control. We've got it all covered this morning, including the big game tonight. Bob Costas of NBC Sports is going to be here to talk football and player safety issues. But we want to start with a Washington battle on full display this week when the president's pick to head the Pentagon, former Republican Senator Chuck Hagel, came under fire from members of his own party during a very contentious confirmation hearing.
Name one person, in your opinion, who's intimidated by the Israeli lobby in the United States Senate. Were you right or wrong? That's a pretty straightforward question.
Senator Hagel, please answer the question I asked. Today, do you think unilateral...
How effective Chuck Hagel will be if confirmed as Secretary of Defense. Earlier this weekend, I sat down for a rare joint interview with the top military leadership, the outgoing Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Martin Dempsey. Secretary Panetta, welcome back. Thanks for being here. Let me start with the man that is poised to take your place. He underwent on Thursday a pretty tough round of questioning. And he seemed to struggle with a lot of the answers. This is, of course, Chuck Hagel, the former Republican senator from Nebraska. I want you guys to take a look at some of his answers.
I should have used another term, and I'm sorry. I would like to go back and change the words in the meeting. The bigger point is what I was saying. I think what I meant to say, should have said, it's recognizable. It's been recognized. He is recognized. Well, I said it, and I don't remember the context or when I said it. Well, I've said what I said. I've said many, many things over many years. That's what I should have said, and thank you.
Secretary Panetta, many of those answers did not satisfy a lot of Republicans. Senator Roy Blunt, Republican from Missouri, is going to vote no. He said his answers were simply too inconsistent, particularly as they related to Iran and Israel. Marco Rubio said, I've been deeply concerned about his previous comments. John McCain, the fact that he wouldn't answer a straightforward question was disappointing. John Barrasso, he appeared weak and wobbly. Are you concerned?
Wobbly.
Well, everyone you quoted from is a Republican, and it's pretty obvious that the political knives were out for Chuck Hagel.
And that's what you think it was? You think this was totally personal, totally partisan?
What disappointed me is that, they talked a lot about past quotes, but what about what a Secretary of Defense is confronting today? What about the war in Afghanistan? What about the war on terrorism? What about the budget sequester and what impact it's going to have on readiness? What about Middle East turmoil? What about cyber attacks? All of the issues that confront a Secretary of Defense, frankly, those we just
did not
see
contain it or not?
Spent on
are we going to let Iran make a bomb and then try and contain it or not? Are we going to prevent them
General
from
Dempsey,
making a bomb?
he brought up the issue on Afghanistan. We did a word count, something
what
like
is
37 mentions of Afghanistan in an 8-hour hearing, nearly 130, more than 130 mentions of Israel. Do you think, you agree with the Secretary that the question was not directed in the right place?
Well, I mean, I was somewhat surprised at the things that weren't discussed in depth. But I'm always concerned when Afghanistan isn't prominent in any conversation we're having as Americans because we've got 68,000 young men and women serving there.
Are you confident of Chuck Hagel? Have you spent a little bit of time with him? Are you confident you can be a partner? You guys have to have this partnership. A Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, this is whether you like each other or not. Are you confident you can have a good partnership with him as you have with Secretary Panetta?
I spent some time with Senator Hagel. Well, I have spent time with Senator Hagel, including when he was teaching over at Georgetown on strategic issues, and then in helping prepare him for his confirmation hearings, we had several opportunities to talk about strategy, and I found him well prepared and very thoughtful about it.
Was his answers to you better than the answers you saw?
Well, I'm not going to grade his homework, but I will say that...
Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dempsey, says he helped Hagel preparation for the
I'm not going to speak about
hearing.
He could be my boss. I mean,
really? That's so good a job, Chairman.
Confidence in their potential boss, but I think he's got great credentials. My personal contacts with him have been very positive, and if he's confirmed, I look forward to working with him.
Secretary Panetta, Senator Lindsey Graham said he is going to hold up Chuck Hagel's nomination until you go on Capitol Hill and testify in a Benghazi hearing. I know that Senator Carl Levin, Chairman of the Armed Services, announced that there is going to be a Benghazi hearing. I assume you're going to be at that hearing.
I suspect that we're
if invited, you will testify.
we will, if we're invited, that we'll have the opportunity to testify, and we look forward to it. We've the Defense Department has been up there participating in most of the hearings, and so we'll look forward to presenting.
The one true thing that Hagel said was that Al Qaeda isn't just a bunch of terrorists.
in securing our embassies. We
You
just
might
had a
actually
near
realize
suicide
that they
attack,
are a
if you
political
will, suicide bomber on
organization,
our embassy in
and
Ankara,
that they
Turkey,
do have a military,
just last week.
and their military
What can be
uses
done
terrorist
more that
extremists.
isn't being done now?
Well, the important things to do are, first of all, you've got to build up the host country capacity. In the end, these embassies do depend on host country, the details that provide security. So you've got to try to develop.
Not, this shouldn't be more Marines. This shouldn't be.
No,
more,
that's it. You're not. Let me get the rest of the points.
All right.
The second is you got to harden these embassies as much as possible, and the third is that we've been working with the State Department to determine whether additional Marines ought to be assigned to that area. And in the end, then, the final alternative is our ability to respond and having our troops in a position where they can respond quickly. But I have to tell you, a lot of that still is dependent on whether intelligence tells us that we've got a problem and gives us enough warning so that we can get to the place so we can respond.
Did you have enough time to get there in time? You didn't have enough warning, General Dempsey?
No.
Benghazi.
We did not.
And is there anything that could have been done better on the intelligence front? You think that could have given you more time to do something, or is this something that this is what happens in a place like Libya that right now is an unstable state?
Well, we've learned a lot from the Benghazi incident, and we, as the Secretary said, we've worked with the State Department and kind of surveying those parts of the world where there's a new norm, if you will, of instability. In terms of discussing the intelligence apparatus, it's pretty easy to talk about the intelligence failures. We don't talk much about the many times when we have intelligence and we're able to stop or prevent, disrupt an attack. So, of course, we should continue to learn from these events.
Is Turkey a success? What the stopping of, he was stopped at the perimeter. Should we see that as a success?
Well, I think the fact that was at the perimeter, the fact that he got nowhere close to where the embassy was, I think that was a good security in terms of preventing it. The fact that we were able to locate that dhow that had man pads on it and be able to respond to that is an example of good intelligence being able to guide us so that we could prevent something more serious from happening.
So when we invited you, we knew you guys were in charge of the military, in charge of the Defense Department. We also didn't realize you were in charge of our economy. Just this week, the new gross domestic product number came out, and it turned out, here's the AP headline of all places, the Norfolk, Virginia Pilot, that said, defense cuts cause economy to shrink. A plunge in defense spending helped push the economy into negative territory for the first time since mid-2009. Defense spending plummeted more than 22%, the steepest drop in more than 40 years. Nearly all those cuts were in services such as weapons maintenance and personnel support. Secretary Panetta, this is even before those automatic sequester spending cuts kick in March. These are the cuts that you guys agreed to back in 2011 that finally kicked in. First of all, is sequester going to happen?
I certainly hope not.
Send an email to North Korea with a picture of the George Washington.
I think it would really be
we can save on fuel.
An irresponsible act.
What are you preparing for it?
We have to prepare for it because there are members up on the Capitol Hill that are saying, "Oh no, we're going to stand back and let sequester happen." Let me tell you, if sequester happens, it is going to badly damage the readiness of the United States of America. We have the most powerful military force on the face of the earth right now. It is important in terms of providing stability and peace in the world. If sequester goes into effect and we have to do the kind of cuts that will go right at readiness, right at maintenance, right at training, we are going to weaken the United States and make it much more difficult for us to respond to the crises.
I want to show you, this is what President Obama, his last campaign promise to the American people, the final debate, this is what he had said about sequester.
First of all, the sequester is not something that I proposed. It's something that Congress has proposed. It will not happen.
He said it will not happen. You're preparing for it to happen. It seems Paul Ryan was just on Meet the Press last week, and he said it's more likely to happen than not. In your view, is this going to happen?
In a world of responsible politics, it should not happen.
Okay, we don't live in that world right now.
Unfortunately,
are you assuming it's going to happen?
Look, we've got a plan for that possibility because there are so many members that are saying, we're going to let it take place. But I have to tell you, it is irresponsible for it to happen. I mean, why in God's name would members of Congress elected by the American people take a step that would badly damage our national defense, but more importantly, undermine the support for our men and women in uniform. Why would you do that?
General Dempsey, explain, you have said this would be catastrophic. You've talked about this idea of a hollow force, but explain specifically. Sequester, are we less safe?
We will become less safe.
How?
I'll tell you how. First of all, it's not just sequester. That's the piece of that's been missing in the discussion. We're also operating under a continuing resolution. The cumulative, the combined effects of sequester and
send an email to North Korea with a picture of the George Washington. We'll save on fuel.
We have to absorb $52 billion when you count the effects of both sequestration and continuing resolution in the last half of the year. When some of that money is already committed, and the only place you can go and get it under that circumstance is readiness. It's operations, it's maintenance, and it's training. And by the way, the civilians that you hear talked about as potentially being furloughed.
We're talking 800,000. I believe 800,000 you guys are already earned.
The only thing that we'll be able to afford after a sequester is an email picture to North Korea of George Washington.
And these are not people living in Washington, D.C. There's this notion that that's probably okay because they're just a bunch of white-collar bureaucrats. The 86% that will be affected that live outside of Washington, D.C. are in our schools, in our clinics, in our motor pools, in our depots, in our factories. This will affect the entire country, and it will undermine our readiness for the next several years.
The two of you are very passionate about this, Secretary Panetta. You've been extreme. I know you're making phone calls on Capitol Hill. The president did a public stop in Las Vegas to talk about immigration. He's going to talk about guns next week. Has he been out there enough on this, publicly trying to build support to get Congress to do something?
Well, you know, the president...
Will they order an email sent to North Korea with a picture of the George Washington to save on
proposals
fuel?
On the table. You know, as somebody who's worked with budgets throughout my life, in order to deal with the deficit problem, you got to deal with entitlements, you have to deal with revenues, and you have to deal with discretionary. All of that has to be part of a package.
Yeah, but is he doing enough?
Well, I think he's pushing as hard as he can.
Maybe more public.
Well, you know, look, the President of the United States has indicated the concern about sequester. He's indicated his concern about maintaining a strong national defense, and he's proposed a solution to this. The ball is in Congress's court. They have got to take action to delay sequester.
All right, I want to move on to some of the hotspots. We're going to start in North Africa.
The chairman's not happy.
On there.
He's thinking about his last days in office.
Militants. The United States is struggling to confront an uptick in threats from the world's newest jihadist hotspots. With limited intelligence and few partners to help, as the Obama administration weighs how to keep Islamic extremists in North Africa from jeopardizing national security without launching war. We want to put up a map here, explain to people where this is: Egypt, Libya, Algeria, Mali, Niger. Secretary Panetta, when I read about the idea that we don't have enough intelligence, we've known about Al-Qaeda in North Africa since before 9/11. This is the original safe haven of Osama bin Laden, was in North Africa.
Chuck's going to ask a tough question.
You know, when Al-Qaeda attacked the United States on 9/11, and it became clear that we had to go to war on terrorism against Al-Qaeda, we focused on Al-Qaeda's core leadership and where they were at. And we've done that. We've gone after them in the Fatah in Pakistan. We've gone after them in Afghanistan.
I think that's a lie.
We're going after them in Yemen. We're going after them in Somalia. Yes, AQIM is out there in North.
It's been out there a long time, right?
It has been out there, but in terms of the threat we were facing, clearly the threat was coming from core Al-Qaeda leadership, which was planning attacks, continuing to plan attacks on the United States of America, and that's what
he wasn't a mastermind. He was a banker.
There are other elements of Al-Qaeda that are out there. We knew that AQIM was out there. But we also were focusing on where
there was some leadership on top of this dead
Yemen, for example, they were actually putting bombs on planes to come to the United States. So we focused on Yemen. Same thing is true for Somalia. Now AQIM is out there. They tried to establish a base of operations. That's serious. I'm glad France took the steps they did. We are now working with France to make sure that Al-Qaeda is
France didn't ask any help.
General Dempsey's AQ.
Why didn't France ask any help from the United States? I'll tell you, because they didn't trust them.
No, I wouldn't.
Because they didn't hold up the head of a dead bin Laden to show the world. All we had was a dead bin Laden told to us in some body wrapped in white coming off of one of our military vessels.
And yours about did we miss something here? Let's think about what's changed over the last 3 or 4 years in that region. The regimes that used to maintain control over that space, that would in fact be part of the solution of keeping Al-Qaeda and its affiliates at bay, are no longer there. The Arab Spring has stripped that away. And what we've got is a period of ungoverned space, or we have a period at which geography is less governed than it used to be. That's why this has become a near-term problem.
You know, he brings up the Arab Spring, Secretary Panetta. This is the issue here. What is our policy? North Africa and the Middle East. Is it stability or is it democracy? We've been on the side of these democratic movements in Libya, in Egypt, but it's brought instability and it's brought more danger.
Well, that's what change is all about, and that's what we're seeing in that part of the world, is a tremendous amount of change. I mean, our hope is that change can move in the direction of providing greater democracy and greater stability. That's what you hope for these countries. That's what you hope for
it's less stable.
There is instability associated with change, and that's what we're seeing in these key countries, and that's what's creating some of the opening that General Dempsey talked about.
All right, I want to move east here to Iran. You have said a couple of times that you did not believe the Iranians were pursuing a nuclear weapon, that they've been pursuing the capabilities on nuclear energy or whatever these nuclear, not pursuing a nuclear weapon. Are they pursuing a nuclear weapon? Are you confident they are? Are you still confident they are not pursuing a nuclear weapon?
What I've said, and I will say today, is that the intelligence we have is they have not made the decision to proceed with the development of a nuclear weapon. They are developing and enriching uranium. They continue to do that. They continue to work at developing their nuclear capability.
Why do you believe they're doing that?
I think it's a clear indication. They say they're doing it in order to develop their own energy source. I think it is suspect that they continue to enrich uranium because that is dangerous and that violates international.
You do believe they're probably pursuing a weapon, but you don't. The intelligence.
No, I can't tell you because I can't tell you they are in fact pursuing a weapon because that's not what intelligence says they're doing right now.
Everybody backs up on this
indication is
mysterious
they want to continue to increase their nuclear capability.
Oh, intelligence.
That's a concern.
Everybody for the past month has been
General Dempsey, Senator Hagel said he was briefed his first trip. He was briefed on the potential plans military plans to deal with Iran should they cross this red line and be seen as pursuing a nuclear weapon. You've been very careful. Do we have the capability to stop this militarily?
We have the capability to. By the way, Iran is not just threatening the region through its acquisition of nuclear weapons. They're very disruptive and malicious influence in Syria. They smuggle weapons. They're active.
They don't want to talk about our
ways.
capability.
We have the capability to. We have the capability to provide options to the president in any number of scenarios to include their acquisition of nuclear weapons.
So, because you were careful before never to say you wanted them to think that we did,
in the sea.
But you were careful never to say you were. So we have the capability to stop this.
Well, stopping is a decision they would make in a political sense, the same way that other nations make decisions. We could.
You have the military plans
to destroy their capability, but intentions have to be influenced through other means.
We don't have the
Secretary
military
Panetta, Afghanistan and the withdrawal.
We can project.
We heard the White House say there was a zero option on the table. Is that a serious option? No troops in Afghanistan after 2014.
The president has made clear in Chicago that we are committed to General Allen's plan in Afghanistan, and it's a plan that's working.
He's calling for more than
we've made
quite a few troops.
But in Chicago, we also said that we're committed to an enduring presence, and I believe that the President of the United States is going to do everything possible to implement the Chicago agreements.
So we should expect to see thousands of troops, maybe not 10,000, but thousands of troops in Afghanistan, General Dempsey, after 2014.
What you should expect to see is that we will live up to our commitment to Afghanistan to maintain a long-term partnership relationship, help them continue to develop. The decision on numbers hasn't been made yet. You can also count on us to match the mission to the number of troops and to keep three things in equilibrium as we get there. One is the mission. Second is retrograde. We have a significant challenge of retrograding equipment and people out. And the third one is the protection of the force.
What is the mission?
The mission in Afghanistan is to establish a secure and capable Afghanistan that can govern itself and ensure that Al-Qaeda never again establishes a safe haven in that country.
I want to show you a travel warning that came out this week. The State Department put this travel warning, and I know that Afghanistan's not a big tourist spot, but this is the travel warning they put down. Afghan authorities have a limited ability to maintain order and ensure the security of Afghan citizens and foreign visitors. This is right now. If they can't secure their own citizens now, do we think it's going to change in a year and a half?
No, but Chuck, let's face it. There's a war going on in Afghanistan. This is not, this is not your peaceful little paradise, where tourists can go there to sunbathe. This is a war area, and the fact is we've made good progress in the war. We've been able to.
I don't believe that.
75% of the population
good progress.
Now under Afghan control and security. We've been able to diminish the Taliban's capabilities. Violence has gone down. We're also developing an Afghan army that has increased its operational skill to provide security. So we're on the right path towards trying to give Afghanistan the opportunity to govern and secure itself.
General, let's see very quickly, Women in Combat, implementing that is, there's some movement on Capitol Hill to pass a law to make sure you don't change standards, somehow lower standards.
Yeah.
Do you think that's good legislation?
Well, they can legislate if they'd like. They don't have to do that because
they're not going to change standards.
We are going to make sure that we've got the right standards for the right job that maintain the readiness of the force. My primary responsibility is the readiness of the force, and I would do nothing to allow that to be undermined. By the way, there's also a requirement as we open up occupational specialties to report to Congress, and they would have the opportunity to ask us what we've done to standards. Look, this really is about changing the paradigm from one of exclusiveness to inclusiveness to do the best job to make the best force for Joint Force 2020, which is where we're looking. We got to get from here to 2020, make sure we got the right talent.
Are the female women,
are
the female military personnel paid less wages?
We'll show a little bit here. We've got.
Is this the reason why we now are allowing them in the combat zone so that we can pay them less?
I want to see a comment on the acting. But there's been a serious debate about the movie seems to indicate that enhanced interrogation techniques or torture was used to get information to get bin Laden. Is that true?
Well, first of all, it's a movie. Let's remember that. I lived the real story with the bin Laden operation. And the real story is that in order to put the puzzle of intelligence together that led us to bin Laden, there was a lot of intelligence. There were a lot of pieces out there that were part of that puzzle. Yes, some of it came from some of the tactics that were used at that time, interrogation tactics that were used. But the fact is, we put together most of that intelligence without having to resort to that.
And you think you could have gotten it without?
I think we could have gotten bin Laden without that.
All right, it's a big weekend. There's a big contest a lot of people are talking about.
Go 40.
It's the contest that has to do with Clinton or Biden. 2016. You've been close to both of them, Secretary Panetta. I got to ask you, who's ready to be Commander in Chief tomorrow?
I think both of them. I've worked with both of them. If they make the decision that they want to be Commander in Chief, I think they're both qualified to do it.
What's their distinctive strength?
I think distinctive strength for Joe Biden is obviously as Vice President, knowing the world, knowing the issues involved, knowing what it means to govern from that perspective. And for Hillary Clinton, she knows it from every angle. Now, having worked in the White House, been a part of that, and now as Secretary of State, knowing the world.
General Dempsey, you want a piece of this? Biden or Clinton, huh?
I'd like to see which of the Harbaugh brothers are going to come in.
Gentlemen, thank you both for being here.
Thanks, Chuck. Nice to be here.
And as Secretary Panetta prepares to leave government service again, we spent some additional time with him on Press Pass to talk about that long career as a congressman, budget director, White House chief of staff, and director of the CIA. He also weighs in on what the current issue of Time magazine calls the rise of the drones, and he has some surprising suggestions for the president going forward. You can watch the full interview on our website. That's at meetthepressnbc.com. Coming up, the Hagel confirmation hearing. Was it political grandstanding or a poor performance? Plus, what led the White House to release this photo of the president, apparently skeet shooting on his birthday last year? I'll ask former Obama White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs when he joins the rest of our political roundtable, the chairman of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, Ralph Reed, the National Hispanic Co-Chair for John McCain's 2008 campaign, Ana Navarro, and David Brooks of the New York Times.
All we can afford to do is send an email with a picture of the George Washington in North Korea.
Meet the Press is brought to you by the Boeing
Take
Company.
parts and pencils.
We know why we're here. To connect our forces to what
Free for JevinJess.com on CH34.US exit 105 I-75 27.345 megahertz. Don't let them collect the
To answer
money.
the call of the brave and bring them safely home.
Around the globe, the people of Boeing are working together to support and protect all who serve. That's why we're here.
Commentary with JevinJess.com.
Our clients are always learning more to make their money do more.
To help me plan my next move, I take Scottrade's free in-branch seminars, plus their live webinars. I use daily market commentary to improve my strategy, and my local Scottrade office guides my learning every step of the way, because they know I don't trade like everybody. I trade like me. I'm with Scottrade.
Scottrade, ranked highest in customer loyalty for brokers.
Impressive? A talking car. But I'll tell you what impresses me. A talking train. This GE locomotive can tell you exactly where it is, what it's carrying, while using less fuel. Delivering whatever the world needs, when it needs it. After all, what's the point of talking if you don't have something important to say?
We are back with our roundtable. Joining me now, former Obama press secretary and senior advisor to the president's 2012 re-election campaign, Robert Kipps, Republican strategist, Ana Navarro, who was the national Hispanic chair for the McCain campaign in 2008, New York Times columnist David Brooks, and founder and chairman of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, Bob Free. Welcome all. Happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Thank you.
David, I want to start with Chuck Hagel. you heard what Leon Panetta said, the political knives were out. How much of it was politics and how much of it was a poor performance by Chuck Hagel?
It was him. You ever had this nightmare? You're back in college, you've been nominated to be the defense secretary, you haven't done any of the studying all term, and the confirmation hearing is in 5 minutes? It looked like that. It looked like that. A guy unprepared. Unprepared even to defend himself, look strong. He's being attacked, his integrity is being attacked, his honesty is being attacked. Hit back. Demand some time. Defend yourself. You got to do that because you got to have the confidence of the president when you get the job, and I think he's going to get the job. You got to have the confidence of the generals in the building. And so this is a problem. If I were Chuck Hagel, I'd go to the president right now and I'd say, do you still have confidence in me? Do you think I can do the job?
You would offer to potentially withdraw?
I think you got to if you think you're not going to be effective because of what's happened. Now, I'm not saying the answer is yes, but I think you've got to go back and ask privately that question.
You know, and a lot of the conversations that the White House is trying to say is, this was all politics. Let me play a clip of your old boss questioning Chuck Hagel.
Were you correct or incorrect when you said that the surge would be the most dangerous foreign policy blunder in this country since Vietnam? Were you correct or incorrect? Yes or no?
My reference to the surge being the most dangerous.
Senator Hagel, the question is, were you right or wrong? That's a pretty straightforward question.
Well,
I would like to answer whether you're right or wrong, and then you are free to elaborate.
Well, I'm not going to give you a yes or no answer on a lot of things.
Show that you refuse to answer that question.
And our viewers may not know the history here a little bit between Chuck Hagel and John McCain. They were very close friends in 2000. Not so in 2008, when it was clear Chuck Hagel, at least his wife, was supporting Barack Obama and Hagel wasn't endorsing John McCain. Was that personal?
I don't think so at all. Look, anybody who ever saw John McCain grill Donald Rumsfeld or Secretary Baker during the 80s on Central America knows that this is John McCain. This is his job. They are there to advise and consent, not to rubber stamp. And if they're not going to get the scrutiny and the tough questions now, when are they going to get it?
Why was he so much tougher on Hagel than John Kerry?
Because there's so many inconsistencies.
They have the same position on the surge.
It is because of the inconsistencies with Hagel. I don't remember a hearing where there were clarifications to clarifications that then had to be clarified. When there were so many, I regret having said that. When there were so many, what I meant to say, what I should have said, because he was doing a terrible job, because he's not giving answers. John Kerry gave answers. We just saw an interview with Leon Panetta where he gave answers. He answered masterfully. We saw 3 tough hearings this week. We saw Secretary Clinton go through Benghazi. We saw John Kerry go through a hearing, and we saw Chuck Hagel. And you cannot compare the first 2 to Chuck Hagel. After I watched the hearing, I remembered, the lyrics of that country song. You mean I shaved my legs for this? You mean we're having this huge fight over this guy who cannot even articulate our policy towards Iran?
Robert?
No, let's be clear. I mean,
this performance was not good.
Let's split this into 2 things because I want to build off something that Anna just said. If you turned on C-SPAN and hadn't watched TV in the intervening 6 years, you'd think we'd had 150,000 troops parked right now in Iraq. The next defense secretary is not going to deal with Iraq and the surge. This was a vanity thing for John McCain to try to prove to a former friend who disagreed with him that he was right on the surge and that Chuck Hagel was wrong.
What should Hagel have said? What would you have told Chuck Hagel to say in response?
I think he said correctly, we're going to let history judge Iraq. Because quite frankly, Chuck Hagel could have said, Senator McCain, I think I might have been wrong on Iraq. Were you wrong on Iraq? Here's the question. None of that is anything that the next Secretary of Defense is going to deal with. But hold on. Let's split this into 2 buckets. So there were the totally superfluous questions that, quite frankly, again, not going to bear in big measure on what the next Defense Secretary does. The disconcerting thing, obviously, that for anybody that watched it was he seemed unimpressive and unprepared on the questions that, quite frankly, he knew was coming.
He had mock hearing. Going to what David said, should he go to the president and say, you still have confidence in him?
Again, I'm reminded 3 weeks into the first term of the Obama administration, Tim Geithner gives a speech at the Treasury Department about our banking industry and how to save it. 3 weeks into the administration, 3 weeks into his tenure, the market dropped 382 points.
Wasn't it?
2 weeks ago, Tim Geithner walked out of the Treasury Department 4 years later as one of the most influential Treasury Secretaries in the history of our country. So
we get
into all these kerfluffles about what hearing or a few answers. Chuck Hagel is an
for the rich people.
Had to execute the
for
orders.
the people that don't really care about the existence of the United States of America.
He's going to be a good Secretary of Defense.
Ralph, I know we talked about this. Bill Kristol wrote the following, comparing Chuck Hagel to Harriet Miers and almost calling or daring Democrats and liberals to do what conservatives did with Harriet Miers when she was nominated to the Supreme Court by George W. Bush in 2005. He writes, conservatives and Republicans had no grudge against Harriet Miers. They simply thought she wasn't a first-rate candidate. They were confident that Bush, the court, and the country could do better. Was it pleasant in 2005 for conservatives and Republicans to oppose a nominee, in this case a close friend of a president they supported? It certainly wasn't pleasant to give any comfort to the president's critics. Still, to use a corny but apt expression, it was the right thing to do, and a willingness to do it was a sign of health of American conservatism. You think are you surprised more Democrats aren't publicly raising concern?
I am surprised, and I think privately it's window rattling how much Democrats behind the scenes are saying that this was an abysmal performance by Senator Hagel. He's the wrong man for the wrong job at the wrong time. And by the way, there were far more questions about the issues that prospectively he would deal with as Secretary of Defense than his record. The reason why his position on the surge in Iraq is so critical is because it speaks to his judgment. But when it comes to Iran, let's remember, Chuck, he voted against designating the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization at a time when the intelligence was clear that they were killing U.S. soldiers in Iraq.
So what's that
this is somebody who wants to command U.S. troops.
To smooth up.
The Revolutionary Guard is killing our troops, and he voted against calling it a
David and Robert, I want you both to tackle something here, but it's the confidence. He may get confirmed, David, but will he have the ability to go back before that Armed Services Committee and sell cuts to the Defense Department?
Well, he will if he has the ability to do it. That's what we don't know. We don't know whether he has the ability. So look at what the next defense secretary is going to have to supervise massive defense cuts with vested interests. He's going to have to make key decisions. Do we do long-term technological advance, or do we do short-term readiness? These are going to be tough questions with tough constituencies. You have to be able to present leadership and toughness. Now, he is personally a tough guy. I've seen him oppose the Iraq War with other Republicans. He personally has that kind of courage. But can he project that kind of surge and show mastery of the building? That's really...
Robert, very quickly, the ability to be a salesman.
Absolutely.
What is that right there?
Let's divide politics from...
Is that an intercostal?
Ralph just said this was about judgment. And then David just said opposing the war in Iraq takes courage. I think the notion in some ways to say because... Chuck Hagel doesn't believe what John McCain says. You question his judgment. I think for somebody that carries out of the jungles of Vietnam, I'm going to trust their ability besides.
Hagel doesn't believe what he says.
I want to go to immigration. Here was Chuck Schumer this week on the issue of immigration.
For the first time ever, there's more political risk in opposing immigration reform than in supporting it.
Stand next to a pervert!
You were closely advising Marco Rubio, who is a part of this group with the bipartisan
20 trips!
Is Chuck Schumer right? Do you buy that?
In
that
2
more
years
risk,
to the Dominican Republic.
I think there's political risk on both sides, and I'm very proud of what Marco Rubio is doing on stepping outside of the political safe zone, of really going out on a limb and leading. I think he's making a big difference in how this issue is being received by the conservative base. He is a Hispanic Republican. They give him deference because of that. He also is very popular with the conservative base and put a lot of time and effort into selling these principles, explaining these principles before they were announced. A week or 2 weeks before they were announced, he was on the radio, he was on TV all the time explaining it to the conservative base and also in Spanish to the Hispanic community. It needs to be supported.
Coming up over my shoulder.
National Review respectfully came out against Marco Rubio's plans. So they said he's wrong about how to go about repairing our immigration system.
Like that.
To think that an amnesty and enforcement bill at this time will end up being anything other than the unbuttered side of a half a loaf of bread, and there's no reason to make a bad deal for fear of losing a Latino vote Republicans never had. You were part of the Bush re-elect team. They did get a big chunk of the Latino vote. This editorial seemed a little bit off on recent history.
Well, the Republicans have now lost 4 out of the 6 presidential elections since the Berlin Wall fell. And the only two that they won, the candidate was somebody from a border state with Mexico who said that family values don't end at the Rio Grande, and whose vision for the future of the country.
You work with a lot of social conservatives. That message is going to work.
Well, I think so, and I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, the devil will be in the details, if I can use that metaphor.
Yeah.
But people of faith are commanded by Scripture, both Old and New Testament, to welcome the foreigner and show compassion for the immigrant. But there's a corollary responsibility, and that is the immigrant, from ancient times with the Israelites all the way to today, is to obey the law and show respect for the customs of the nation in which they reside. So, for example, you've got 1 million people who are spouses or children of people who are here legally.
With green cards.
Seeking a green card. Right. 200,000 of those are minor children. We don't believe, Chuck, that somebody who violated our laws as their first step on the road to becoming an American should take precedent over those minor children entering the country.
Is this going to work?
Yeah. I take this from the sacred to the profane.
Yes.
I've been so frustrated this week. We've got an aging society with stagnant education levels. Out there's this global pool of talent who will start, if they come here, they'll start more jobs than natives. They'll pay more taxes than they receive. They'll create a much more dynamic economy. And the last week in Washington, we've been sidetracked off this potential to actually give some growth to our economy by issues of how many links are in the chain we're going to build in Mexico.
How many drones?
What's going to trigger what? Does gay marriage
affect all this? If we actually have immigrant
like the moral capital of peaceness. I mean, this is
really our only shot
at getting a growing economy. I think the Senate's done an outstanding job in this attempt to win the race for
may not bomb
global talent out there.
After they receive the email with a picture of George Washington, because we can't afford the gas to send a ship over there.
In this respect, here's the president, a picture of him skeet shooting. We know that there had been a kerfuffle. This idea was he really? The president said in an interview that yes, he had fired a gun, yes, he had done skeet shooting. I do have to ask you, have you seen him skeet shoot?
I have not, but Camp David for him is a private retreat that he spends most of the time with his family. I don't think it's whether or not the president shoots a gun regularly, or even if he shoots it well.
Why did the White House participate in the conspiracy essentially by feeding the beast?
Oh, Chuck, because all you sit in the briefing room as you used to when I was there and ask us for photo evidence for anything that the president says or does. But let's not. I mean, the big political development this week in the debate on guns was that the NRA came out in favor of criminals having access to any weapon they'd like to in our society, walking back the same congressional testimony that they gave after Columbine, that having a universal background check to make sure that a criminal doesn't have access to a semi-automatic weapon. I mean, that's the real event that happened this weekend.
I want to show a little bit of this ad. I'm going to just roll it through here. Michael Bloomberg's putting up a Super Bowl ad, Ralph Reed and Anna, about putting off, supporting the universal background check bill, showing testimony of Wayne LaPierre in 1999 supporting a universal background check. Here's a little bit of that ad.
The NRA once supported background checks.
We think it's reasonable to provide mandatory instant criminal background checks for every sale at every gun show. No loopholes anywhere for anyone.
All right, I'll admit I need quick answers here. Can a Southern Republican vote for the background check bill and get reelected?
Well, look, a licensed gun dealer at a gun show already does a background check. That's already going on. So what we're talking about is antique and special collectors and private sales. I think that's going to be very difficult to legislate properly without killing gun shows.
And there is an urban-rural split, almost more so than there inside the Republican Party than anything else. Urban Republicans from our hometown of Miami more supportive of this idea.
Yes, but I think both the Southern Republican and the Urban Republican should all be voting for universal background checks. Look, Connecticut was a game changer. We need to understand that. The gun issue is here. It's not going away. Every other day we are hearing about a tragedy on the news, and people keep asking, what are we doing about it? Republicans and the NRA should be part of the solution, should be part of the conversation, not just say no. And universal background checks is something that there could be consensus on.
Guys, I have to leave it there. Sorry, Robert. I'll get you. We get you again. I don't get. You used to be able to cut me off, so now I get to cut you off every once in a while. Thank you all. Yeah, that's fun. Next up, it's Super Bowl weekend. We're talking football. Bob Costas of NBC Sports is here. We're going to get his thoughts on the culture and safety of the game right after this.
the rest of your life with me, Ray? Well, my selection is truly unique. 10,000 retail counseling ideal guide and exclusive doors. My expert staff recommend the perfect type of package that
to splatter Peyton Manning and knock him out of the game. In the next breath, he says, I'm going to donate my brain, however, to be studied afterwards because I understand the effects of the game. And to me, Chuck, here's the key thing. No matter how hard Goodell and company try, and no matter how sincere they are, to eliminate things like bounties, and more important, to eliminate the obvious illegal hits to the head and encourage lowering the target and no head-to-head contact, the way football is played, even legal hits are frightening.
They're faster, they're stronger than they were even 10 years ago.
Bernard Pollard's hit on Stephen Ridley of the Patriots in the AFC Championship game not only was a completely legal hit, It was celebrated as the essence of football. His coach, John Harbaugh, an admirable man, can be heard on NFL film saying, BP, BP, that's the way the game is played. And yet that hit is no less barbaric and no less dangerous than one that would get you suspended.
So who takes the leadership role here? Is it the players? I say this, Alex Smith is the backup quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers in this game because he was out for the concussion.
Correct.
He will not. What player will self-report? They're going to lose their starting job if they self-report on this front. So if the players aren't going to do it, is it going to take more people like the president speaking out? Congress, Teddy Roosevelt made the NCAA created the NCAA because of football deaths. Is that what it's going to take?
DeMaurice Smith, the head of the Players Association, is pushing for increased safety measures, and next year there are going to be independent neurologists on the sidelines that can diagnose and potentially treat concussions as they happen. But one of the things we have to keep in mind is this, that all the research shows that it isn't just the diagnosed concussions, it's the hundreds, if not thousands, of subconcussive hits
that they couldn't diagnose.
Exactly. Those are the ones that actually cumulatively take a greater toll than the concussions. Junior Seau, who killed himself, shot himself in the chest so they could preserve his brain, just like Dave Duerson did, never had a diagnosed concussion in his entire career.
Is football going to go the way of boxing? And then let me ask you this. If football overcompensates on the safety front, do they risk an MMA version of football that actually becomes more popular?
If they overcompensate on
it's too safe, and you see suddenly people embrace the right.
They start a different kind of league. They start a parallel league. I don't know. I guess there are some people who, unlike me, I like football despite its violence. A lot of people like it primarily because of the violence. But I will say this, for all the drama, the excitement, the strategy, all the appealing things about football, the way football is currently played in the NFL is fundamentally unsustainable.
Costas, I'm going to leave this part of the conversation here. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with more in just a moment.
At Scottrade, our clients trade and invest exactly how they want. With Scottrade's online banking, I get one view of my bank and brokerage accounts with one login to easily move my money when I need to. Plus, when I call my local Scottrade office, I can talk to someone who knows how I trade. Because I don't trade like everybody. I trade like me. I'm with Scottrade. Scottrade, awarded 5 stars from Smart Money Magazine.
Costas Cook come out and tell us that the way football's played today is unsustainable. Costas is a wimp. Breaking 3-4. Maybe he wants to make it all la-di-da so people can make a bet on it and you don't know which side's going to win just right. You have a predetermined winner each time, Costas. Play some football.
With SodaStream,
I ain't too much worried about what you're putting in your biomass either.
If you love the bubbles, set them free.
Oh, the records won't be right because he sprayed some crap from a deer horn underneath his armpit.
And now's when the golf gets even better.
The beaches and waters
So what? He's a sports player. He can die out
The
there.
natural beauty. And don't forget our amazing seafood.
So come to the golf. You'll have a great time.
Especially in Alabama.
You mean Mississippi? That's Florida.
Say Louisiana, where there's no dessert.
Brought to you by BP and all of us who call the golf home.
I have very good news, everybody. What's the good news? Silver Linings is nominated for 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture of the Year. And for the first time in over 30 years, it's the only film nominated in all 4 acting categories. Silver Linings Playbook. Rated R.
To answer the call of the brave and bring them safely home.
Around the globe, the people of Boeing are working together to support and protect all who serve. That's why we're here.
Bob Cox says there's much more we're going to want to get to, including the latest news about A-Rod, performance-enhancing drugs in baseball and football, but we are out of time. We're going to take it to the web for a Take-Two web extra, which you can find on our website later this afternoon. That's all for today. David will be back next week, and I'll have an exclusive with House Republican leader Eric Cantor about the future of the GOP and whether Congress can find any areas to work together with the president. That's next Sunday. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Prince.
Hey, Dad's room looks great.
And after we get Sarah some headphones, it'll be perfect.
Honey, thank you for making our home his home.
Our home is his home. Behind every open heart is a story. Tell yours with my Open Hearts collection at Kay Jewelers, the #1 jewelry store in America. There are millions of reasons to give one. The message is always the same. Keep your heart open, and love will always find its way in. Every kiss begins with Kay.
You know what's impressive? A talking car. But I'll tell you what impresses me. A talking train. This GE locomotive can tell you exactly where it is, what it's carrying, while using less fuel. Delivering whatever the world needs, when it needs it. After all, what's the point of talking if you don't have something important to say?
Build must make adrenaline pump and pulses quicker. To help you not just stay alive, but feel alive. The new C-Class is no exception. It's a Mercedes-Benz through and through. See your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer for exceptional offers through Mercedes-Benz Financial Services.
Your house might be the nicest on the block, but is it the healthiest? Stock your fridge with fruits and veggies, vacuum at least twice a week, and if you have your own elevator, replace it with stairs. The Joneses will want to keep up with you the more you know.
Commentary with Temperatures.com, J-EFFS.com. Jeff on the side.
The board-certified physicians at Florida Hand Center are leaders in minimally invasive treatments for hand and arm conditions.